This recipe is the true definition of comfort food. It's with a delicious garlic mayonnaise, and we are making chopped cheese sandwich. Let's get straight into it. Starting out, we'll make the mayonnaise. Add 1 whole egg to a tall jar or container, along with 15 milliliters of white vinegar, 10 grams of Dijon mustard, 1 clove of garlic, and also 200 milliliters of any neutral flavored oil. I've gone with a mellow olive oil right now. Then we can get in there with an immersion blender and just blitz this all up until a thick emulsion has formed, and that right there is just our base mayonnaise, obviously with that garlic infusion. Hit it up with a little bit of seasoning to taste, which is salt and pepper, give it a quick mix through, and then you can leave it in the container to save dishes or transfer it over to a jar, it's up to you, make sure you get it all in there. But what we've just created is this delicious garlic mayonnaise that can then have a lid placed on, screw it nice and tightly, and then we can place this in the fridge until we're ready to serve, and this will last up to 4 days. Now the rest of the prep is really easy, just remove the top from a brown or yellow onion, slice it in half through the root, and then just peel off those annoying skins. You can save all the skins for a stock if you wanted to, place them in the freezer and use them at a later date. Then what we're going to do is just make thin slices across, stopping at the root, make 2 slices horizontally to break up the formation and make this nice and small. Then just dice these really finely, trimming off any excess flesh from around the root. Next is the fillings. What I have here is just 1/4 of an iceberg lettuce. The amount is completely up to you and depending on how much you like. All that we need to do with this is just shred it nice and thin, and the correct terminology for this is chiffonade. Just like the lettuce, tomatoes are also being used. The amount's completely up to you. I recommend slicing these nice and thin. I ended up using 2 tomatoes for this recipe, and this recipe does serve 4, but obviously change the amounts if you're only serving it for yourself. We can then place these onto a plate, season them generously with sea salt flakes, this really enhances the flavour, and then also hit it up with about 10 cracks of black pepper. In a large pan, add in 1 tablespoon of any oil of your choice. I ended up going with olive oil for this one, and then we're going to add in 200 gram patties of beef mince. This is 18% fat. We do want a high fat percentage on this for extra flavour, and I should also mention that you want this pan smoking hot before you add the beef in, and then we're going to push this down using a spatula, really compress it down. We want this to get as flat as possible, that way this is going to build a delicious crust on the bottom of that patty. Once flattened out, season it generously with salt and pepper. I ended up using about 20 cracks worth of pepper, and then we're going to use a spatula again and just peel it away from the bottom of the pan. Because we've compressed it down, it will stick. I don't recommend doing this in a non-stick pan if you have metal spatulas, just because you'll scratch off all of the non-stick. Also, this can be done on a barbecue if you wanted to, just do whatever's easiest for you. But once it has become unstuck, flip it over gently, just so it doesn't break up. Then we can sprinkle on the onions, and the amount is completely up to you. Let's then use the top of a spatula just to break up the beef a little bit, that way those onions can get in there and we can spread out this patty as much as possible. And then the amount of cheese is up to you, but I'm using American cheddar, which has been freshly grated, not that plastic stuff, please don't use that. Place on a lid, turn it down to low, and then just let it sit for the time being. In the meantime, we can prepare our rolls. I'm using a crusty hot dog roll right now, but hoagie rolls are fantastic if you can get hold of them. Slice it in half horizontally and then open it up, but still leave it attached. Spread it with some butter if you wanted to, or oil if you want to toast it in a pan. Place it onto a lined baking tray with parchment paper, and then just toast it under the grill to your liking. Once toasted, generously spread that garlic mayonnaise we made at the beginning all over both top and bottom of the buns. Again, the amounts are completely up to you. Gently add in that delicious chopped cheese with all of that melting cheese on top, and I recommend just piecing it together just so it does fit in the bun, and then add those tomatoes on over the top. I used about 4, I reckon it's the perfect amount for this recipe, but definitely use more or less if you don't like tomato. And finally, add over that iceberg lettuce as well, and again, the amounts are completely up to you. Let's then close this delicious sandwich up. Try not to separate the bread if you can. It will be a little bit messy at this stage. You can definitely eat it as it is right now, but I do recommend wrapping it up in some food paper. This is just going to make it really tight. Nothing's going to fall out, and it'll be so much easier to eat. Once you have wrapped it up, slice it in half. You can do it on an angle for a little bit of presentation. And what we're then left with is this cheesy goodness of a sandwich. And this right here is the true definition of comfort food for myself, and I hope you feel that way too.
This looks absolutely delicious. It smells amazing as well. The only thing that is left to do is, of course, we can then dig in. That right there to me is the perfect comfort food. It's easy, it's delicious, it's warming. Everything about it is just perfect. The crust on the beef has a beautiful texture. Cheese in the center is absolutely delicious, and it's perfectly seasoned as well. Then you got the tomatoes with that seasoning on, elevating the flavor and freshness with the crunch from the iceberg lettuce and obviously the crusty roll. Definitely do make this recipe, it's so delicious. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, consider subscribing, it really does help me out, along with hitting the bell notification next to it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.